السلام عليكم جميعا. أتمنى أن تكونوا جميعا طيبين وبصحة وسلامة. معكم مهلا الرحيلي من NSK Tech. وأول شيء أحب أقدم لكم مقدمة بسيطة عن NSK Tech. تم تأسيس NSK Tech تماشيا مع رؤية 2030، بحيث أننا مسؤولين عن نقل التكنولوجيا الحديثة المنتجة من شركات من جميع أنحاء العالم إلى السوق السعودي، بحيث أن يستفيد منها القطاع الحكومي والقطاع الخاص. متحدثين اليوم منضمين إلينا من جمهورية إيرلندا، وهم يعتبروا الشركة الرئيسية للويبينار اللي حصل أمس لجيت فيزيبيليتي، تابعين لهم. فمحاضرتنا اليوم بتكون غالبا باللغة الإنجليزية، فأعتذر منكم. إذا عندكم أي أسئلة أو أي شيء تقدروا تحطوها في السكشن here on the right. Hello everyone, my name is Mahla Rihaili and I'm a project manager at NSK Tech. I would like to first start by introducing both NSK Tech and Smart Tech. NSK Tech is a Saudi Arabian company that was developed according to the 2030 vision, where our responsibility is to transfer innovative technologies from all around the world. Now, to the Saudi Arabian market, to benefit, we transfer these technologies. Now, Smart Tech is one of our partners on this journey. Smart Tech is a multi-award-winning cybersecurity organization that provides different innovative solutions in the cybersecurity field. They offer different solutions. For example, the cognitive security services using IBM Watson, the SIEM, risk and governance, and penetration testing. These solutions are offered to enhance the efficacy of your security infrastructure indeed. Now, today we have with us the CTO and the General Manager of Smart Tech, Andy and Raluca. Now, I don't want to take your time any longer, so I'm pretty sure that they will do a great job now in taking you to a tour through Smart Tech. You can go ahead now, guys. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Andy. I'm the CTO for Smart Tech. I'm absolutely delighted to have the opportunity and feeling very honored to talk to you, especially at this time of the day. Thank you for making the time. I hope it will be a very informative session for you guys. And we'll just go ahead. So we're talking today about navigating the new era of data security. Smart Tech at a glance was already introduced, so I will not go too long into this. We have a global presence. We are very, very excited working and building our arm out in Saudi Arabia. We believe that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will be a very, very important partner to us. And as I already mentioned before, the 2030 initiative of the Kingdom is, I think, a fantastic opportunity for us to get into your region and get a better understanding, but also to help your region in what we do best, delivering security services for cloud, but also on regulatory compliances and many other areas like pen testing and managed services. We have them here drawn up a little bit. As I said, we don't want to go too deep right now into this and talk about a few other pointers. But as I said, we do managed security services. We have our own threat intelligence and partner up with other threat intelligence companies, penetration testing, and we do, of course, also then the compliance and risk management and cloud security. This is just a list of many of our partners. As you can see, we are partnering up with the best of breed: Cisco, Palo Alto, IBM, Proofpoint, of course, Get Visibility as very close to them, but also Trend Micro and Get Visibility, and many other companies. We're trying to cater for our customers what they need and trying to bring the best technology into their companies if required. Today, we're going to talk about cyber defense challenges for the year 2020 and the coming years. And again, I think it is an amazing situation that we're getting in right now with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia 2030. I wish I could be doing this session today live with you. Unfortunately, as we have it here on the list, COVID-19 is giving us a little bit of a trouble. We can't travel, we can't meet face-to-face as we like. And it is also giving us challenges. As you can see, I think the top 3 problems that you will encounter, the challenges in the next years, is cyber attacks and nation-state attacks, specifically against Saudi Arabia, the remote work in the eye of COVID-19, and the changes that it will bring even after, and the digital transformation and the ECC, which is for businesses probably a very tricky situation to be compliant and get everything done, but I welcome it very much because I think it helps us to get control over the problems that we see in 1 and 2. Very first, I think we're going to talk now about the cyber attacks, nation-state attacks, and the threat landscape. We invested a little bit of time to not just talk about the global, but very much about what does it look from our perspective from the outside, what we think is something that will be important for Saudi Arabian businesses to look after. And I think the news talk for themselves. 95% of businesses hit by cyber attacks in the past year. Saudi Arabia now authorities uncovered again another data wiping malware. And it doesn't matter if it's data wiping, if it's ransomware. Saudi Arabia can be found in Forbes magazine, in the local Arabic week, early news, everywhere. It is a hotspot at the moment for cyber attacks. And I know, speaking with friends of mine that work very closely with Aramco, also that they've seen a multiple fold of increasing attacks. I'm still in touch with friends from different companies like FireEye and AT&T. So we share, of course, a bit what we see in the market. One problem that we see very clearly, and this is something that I think you can agree, Saudi Arabia is at the moment under siege by Iran. Iran is refocusing its cyber attack strategies against Saudi Arabia more than ever before. They're removing it from the US because threats from the US are very aggressive currently against Iran. And this is a terrible situation to be in. We have 3 major nation-state sponsored organizations, that's APT 33, APT 34, and 35. And all of those organizations are associated to the common attacks that you see in your environments, the data vipers, Shamoon, and so on. We are very aware of it, and we work with threat intelligence partners like Unit 42 from Palo Alto, with IBM, to get the best threat intelligence to our customers, to help them to identify the threat early enough and if possible, warn early against attacks against known vulnerabilities. One of the biggest attack vectors, and that is for everybody in the world the same, is the number 1 attack vector is email. If you talk to companies that are specializing in email protection, you will see that they claim that it is somewhere between 43 and 55% of attacks are going into systems. We're seeing at the moment an increase of those attacks coming in due to COVID, because now it's even easier to, the attacker find more and more messaging, and we go into a little bit more detail later on this, due to COVID, to send their messages and their malicious code to companies. Now, we've seen in the past, as you know yourself, and Aramco is a good example, because a sad example, let's say, they have been under attack on a regular basis, and many attacks came in over email. We've seen years and years ago the attack where the billing system were attacked. And there was a clear indication that email was even already there involved in the attacks. The second biggest threat factor is the supply chain. And it's very important to understand for those in the audience that maybe think we are just a small company. And this is a very sad situation, of course, when you think, oh, we're not important to be attacked. It's not true. You may be the part of a supply chain of a larger organization. Everybody is, or maybe someone of your suppliers is interested in your organization. So the supply chain is a very important part. Third-party vendors coming into your organization. We might see OT for those organizations that have production environments and critical infrastructure that is relying on manufacturing pumps and all those things. if you have people coming into your organization to help you, to consult with you, to work together with you to build your business out, they can become a threat to you. T-Mobile, Entercom, Amazon, eBay, these are all companies that know their business, SpaceX, Tesla, and Boeing, and they still get breached through third parties because we have to work together. So our responsibility as organizations is, of course, to be secure and aware of this and provide this to our peers in the organizations throughout our partnerships with customers. And of course, we as people that provide a service, we need ourselves to look at our suppliers. If it is services, I mean, we're not only working with cybersecurity companies, we have Microsoft as tool set in our office. We built this presentation on PowerPoint. So we need to do our due diligence against those, and it's the same for everybody else. So it's a very important part to look at this. Now, what happened in the past now, I know it's ongoing. The last incidents resonate in 2019 with the current threat landscape. And these are not new attacks, and we're talking here very clearly about 2 points: ransomware and botnet infections. We've seen a rise of ransomware in the last couple of months, bigger than ever. And that is just because the opportunity for criminals has changed due to COVID. But what we also see is the reuse of old technologies combined together to build multi-warheaded attacks. So it is not only anymore a ransomware that comes into your network, there's a complexity to it. And again, these complex attack methods make it possible to utilize the supply chain relatively easy, because if I get an info stealer into your system and collect data like passwords for admin systems, I can build a botnet, and I can wait and sit till neither somebody connects to another company, or I find a system in your system that's vulnerable enough to have an attack to wipe your data or to encrypt your most important details to work. And that could be something like Active Directory. We've seen cases that Active Directory has been attacked, and when this is not being discovered fast enough, we don't have this visibility immediately, and you can see this very clearly in the different areas 1 and 2. So a malware gets in, and then it gets dropped. The ransomware encrypts now all the Active Directory. How many critical systems are connected over Active Directory for login? And this is recommended because, of course, with dual-factor authentication, it should give you security. So these are very important areas that you have to look out to make sure that you have the security, that you have the right partners. But how to know what do I need to monitor? So it's visibility to internal networks is very important. If you don't have considered it, think about building your SOC or have a partner helping you with SOC integration. Vulnerability management and patch management should be a standard for any company that uses computers. These days, the vendors make it relatively easy to be up to date with patches, especially with the common operating system like Microsoft, Mac OS. You have auto update functions and so on. So it should be relatively easy to be there. But how to control and measure this? There comes things like penetration testing and regular vulnerability scanning in place to control this, because this is the part where many organizations have the struggle, not to say we do this, but to enforce it and control it. Information system gap analytics are very important, because you are the expert in what you do. You are the best in that. But that doesn't mean that you're the best in cybersecurity. That's why organizations like us and our partners are existing and trying to how to bring you to a point where you're so secure that you don't have to worry about what is going on in this threatful landscape. Remote work in the eye of COVID-19. How to protect the mobile force against what's happening. I think we all can agree that working from home put different challenges to all of us. Not only that you are now 24/7 at home and have not the time to escape the small bits and pieces that are in your daily business happening, but also how do I protect the access to systems? Now, what we noticed is that cyber attacks, especially phishing, have been increasing by 6,000% since February 2020. This is a rise of COVID. 85% of IT professionals report additional challenges. And the challenges are very simple things. How do I make sure that the laptops that are out in the field are clean? First one. How do I make sure that people only access the data that they should? Many companies didn't have a third-party regulation, or a work-from-home regulation in place. They had to bring this up. And they overnight had to set up VPN connections and other ways of protecting the system, or moving data into the cloud to make it available. But how do I make this available without compromising my own security? And that was one of our challenges, to deal with the vast majority of information requests to us. How do I secure my workforce? How do we secure the data that we have? I'm not sure if all the data that I have made available is secure. And these are questions that go beyond the normal questions that you would have in a normal network that you own by yourself. And as you know, your 2030 initiative is also talking about cloud computing, the journey of digital data into the cloud. This is coming. I think COVID is just accelerating what we would have seen in the next 5 to 10 years to come. Now, the problem is when you speed up that fast, we have a saying here, start walking before you start running. We went from beginning to walk in this digital transformation into speed running. We're sprinting constantly. There's many problems, and I believe there's many underlying problems that we still don't know. Recording of telephone conversation is not much easier and different than before. Supply chain downtimes that we see also due to COVID, because now a vendor can't produce or provide with details. We had customers that needed new laptops because they had no computers that they could use on site, and we had to build them and order them. And we had a problem sourcing those laptops in the early stages. And all those little bits and pieces are coming up, and then even just distributing those laptops safely, making sure that they're encrypted and all those things. This is an extra strain on the companies and will keep going on because there's a lot of technology out there. And I know there's lots of companies that bring your own device policies, say like, hey, you know what, let's just use the computers of the customer, of the users that we have there. But how secure are they? And these are risk questions that we need to answer ourselves. At the end, how to organize and protect your organization best is pretty much explained in this slide. Create secure connections to your company network. VPN is one of many possibilities, but there's also the question always, if you, apart from the VPN that you have, you do factor authentications and other things in place. Encrypt devices becomes, I think, more than ever a very important part, because if you don't encrypt the device and it gets stolen, broken into a place, or even just simple, you have to let a person go in the organization. You can lock them out of the device. But do they return the device to you? If the hard drive is encrypted, at least you can make sure that they can't log in anymore and that this is not available anymore. MDM, in general speaking, MAS360 is one of our tools that we prefer to use to make sure that mobile devices can be wiped remotely if need be, to ensure that only software is installed that the organization deems safe to use. Switch to cloud-based storage. Again, a very tricky journey for lots of companies, because it is not just, hey, I turn on the switch and have OneDrive going. Which data can be in the cloud? Which data can I trust which group of people in my organization with? There's data. I wish we could just put all in OneDrive. That's fantastic. But the problem is, do I want really everybody to know my financials as an organization? Do I really trust every employee with the latest information on the newest prospects? Most likely not. I want to keep certain data to a set of people that I trust. And then comes also on top of it, of course, personal information of employees, of customers. Here in Europe, we have to deal with GDPR, which is very similar to your own regulations. And my colleague Raluca will talk about this in a few minutes in detail. It's very important that we focus on how we keep this data safe and from prying eyes. Use encrypted email programming. This is a very interesting and very controversial topic to me, because email encryption is based, or email is based on a very old technology. It's called postfix. And it will put a strain on your workforce to encrypt all details, because neither you encrypt it based on grouping in Office 365 and other things, but what do you do if on the other side your customer is using Zimbra or Gmail? The only way to encrypt is over TLS or a protocol, a system like you use with Trend Micro, or you could use with other vendors, where you specifically put a word in or something and the email gets now encrypted. The email gets sent out to the customer. The customer has now to get on a portal to encrypt this detail. This is a lot of education to your user base. And again, enforcing this is a very tricky bit. And there's lots of ways of teaching and explaining to your workforce what is email hygiene. Because at the end, this is a very important thing. And this is pretty much one of the most important things, because we see over 40%, up to 50% of companies that got breached have been attacked by email. And then the last bit, with increasing user awareness, what we really need is a good password hygiene. And we learned one thing out of password hygiene. It's not about resetting the password every month. It's about complex passwords, long passwords. I rather have a user use the same password for 3 months or half a year, and they're using over 18 digits, than using something with 6 digits because I can't remember the password. And then comes again dual-factor authentication and other things. And I think I just now hand over to my colleague Luca for the digital transformation and ECC.
Thank you, Andy. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Perfect. So hi, everyone. It's a true honor to present today with my colleague Andy. And as he has introduced, I want to take a moment and discuss a little bit about compliance and the digital transformation that the Kingdom is currently undergoing. So, as you all know, as part of the Vision 2030, the Kingdom has set a goal to change the country's security posture. And part of that plan is to invest in the development of public service sectors such as health, education, infrastructure, recreation, and tourism. And underpinning this initiative has an increased focus on technology. So what does that mean? It's no doubt that as the economy in the Kingdom is going to become more digitalized as part of the vision, the transformation will mean that more cyber threats will be prevalent. So it's very important to safeguard national security. So securing cyberspace is a fundamental element of the 2030 vision, which is why the National Cybersecurity Authority has developed the Essential Cybersecurity Controls, as we call them, ECC, to assist organizations to meet their obligations and to set a framework of minimum cybersecurity requirements. So what I would like to do is just to take a few minutes to go through some of these high-level controls and what they would mean for your organization. And hopefully to give you some tips that you can use. So the 5 pillars of the ECC controls are around governance, defense, resilience, third-party and cloud computing, and ICS cybersecurity. But the 4 keystones that we feel are very important for complying with this regulation are people, technology, processes, and strategy. So if you look at the first one in terms of governance, the number one aspect of complying with this new regulation is having policies and procedures in place. Now, this means depending on the size of the organization, you can have 2, 3, or you can have up to 50 policies and procedures, which set the rules for ensuring the security of information and data. It's also important to review these policies and practices and audit your systems on a regular basis. So what we feel is best practice is once a year, go through an internal audit and review everything from your policies, procedures, and controls perspectives to understand whether they are still effective. The third aspect of the governance is the human resources security side of things. And this relates to starters, movers, leavers. So this means it's important to understand who is working for us. Have we conducted background reference checking? Do we have the appropriate access control in place to ensure that our workers have only access to what they need to and not more? And that when they leave, that this access has been revoked. And as Andy mentioned before, awareness and training is also very important. Are we training our users on a regular basis? If you look at what's happening now with COVID-19, the training has changed a little bit because the attack surface has changed. So we are now seeing an increased amount of phishing, a different aspect of phishing, using different themes. So it's important to regularly train the users to make sure that they are in tune with the latest threats. In terms of the second high-level control defense, there are a few aspects of this, and Andy has touched on a few of them before. But if you look at asset management, it's important to understand where your critical assets are, and not only assets, but also information. So having an inventory of these assets is very important. And there are tools in place that you can use for automated asset management, and then you can just go through them, assign importance, and at least you have a list that you know you can protect. Identity access management is also really important, and this relates back to the other point that I made in relation to HR security. Do we know who has access to our information? Have we applied the rules to make sure that they don't have more access than they need? This is not easy to do without technology, but the first important aspect is the policy. Email protection, I think Andy has touched on it, so I won't go into too much detail. Protecting information security facilities, network security, very important as well. As we diversify or shrink our networks, it's really important to have the controls in place. Mobile device security, I think everybody nowadays is using some sort of a mobile device, whether it's a phone or a tablet. Even laptops sometimes are considered mobile devices because we just take them everywhere. And the proliferation of mobile devices means that we have more threats coming in, sophisticated threats, and we need to adapt to these new threats. Data and information protection is very important. You need to understand firstly what data you have, what information you have, in order to accurately protect it. This is very hard to do without having, for example, data discovery and data classification tools in place, because we have a lot of data. We create a lot of data and it's everywhere. It's on the cloud, it's on our computers, on our endpoints, it's on servers, it's local, it's everywhere. How can we protect it without accurately knowing where it is and what it is, and especially who has access to it? Cryptography is also a topic in the defense control. We need to be able to encrypt our devices, encrypt our data, and make sure that if it does end up in the wrong hands, that it's safe because they cannot access that data. Backup and recovery, really important in the case of a ransomware, for example, or a nation state attack. How can we effectively respond and how can we recover from an attack? So it's important to have a backup procedure in place. It's important to have a disaster recovery plan. And one of the most important things, and this is sometimes overlooked, is have we tested our plan in the last year or so? Have we conducted exercises and has it been effective? Event logs and monitoring, this is where technologies like IBM QRadar SIM come into place, is understanding, what type of events does our organization produce on a daily basis, and which of these events are malicious and what do we need to focus on, because an organization can produce millions and millions of events in just 5 minutes. So it's really important to understand which of these events do we need to act on fast enough. And this is what ties in really well with incident response. Physical security is still important because we may not be in the office right now, but we may have data centers with access to information. We may have information and storage in our own offices that we need to access remotely. So physical security is also something that is really important as part of this compliance. The third pillar is related to business continuity and maintaining resilience. And this relates a little bit to the backup and recovery that I just mentioned. It's important to have a business continuity plan in place, but it also is really important to test that plan at least once a year and document the test. The third-party organizations and cloud computing is something that Andy already mentioned, a huge risk to national security as well, because you don't know what's happening in your supplier's environment. So you need to make sure that you have controls in place to effectively deal with that and make sure that you're protected from external threats. And industrial control systems is for organizations that provide, for example, critical infrastructure, so energy, water, anything that we rely on as citizens. So the regulation has strict controls in place that asks organizations with such infrastructure to protect this critical infrastructure. So if we were to, and I think this is the last slide. So if we were to wrap up what I've just mentioned and what Andy has mentioned, if you look at the three risk factors that we've discussed here today, as we discussed in the beginning, we are here to help you navigate that journey and make sure that you remain compliant, you stay secure, and you protect against national security threats. So if you look at our wide range of services and you remember the controls that we discussed before, it's all about integration of everything. So it's the right technology, it's the process, and it's the people that can really make it work. So I think that this is the end of our presentation, and we would love to answer your questions if you have any. I can see there are some comments on the chat. So I guess we can open the floor.
Thank you, Raluca and Andy, for this useful presentation, and especially the small tips that we need to learn and know more about, and basically wisen ourselves around that area. I can see, do you deliver the services and capabilities within KSA?
Yes, absolutely. We have an office already in your region. We're building out our capabilities. We're very aware that language is very important here. And we are absolutely excited, and we hope that we can help also to develop in the future new and young talent from your universities to become the best of breed of cyber security people.
If there is any other question?
Okay, I can see a question about risk assessment. So risk assessment is an important part of, let's say, the governance of your security program. What that means is, when I was talking earlier about review and audit, the risk assessment is part of that. So it's important to conduct a yearly risk assessment, a security risk assessment, but also in times of, let's say, important vulnerabilities getting on the market, it's always good practice to revisit that risk assessment based on what's happening out there. I can see another question about cloud computing. Is there any plan to have national clouding services, or is it better to cloud abroad? I can't speak for everyone. However, I think it's always best to keep it within the country. Yeah. Because you can then control your data, control your infrastructure. This is why a lot of regulations globally have put in very strict measures in place to ensure that the data resides within a particular geographical area. Mahal, I don't know about the national plans to put this in place, but our advice, is always it's important to keep it within the country.
Exactly. Can you deliver? Oh, yes. Yes, this is for you, Smart Tech guys. And I know you say Smart Tech 247. So this is you. They operate every day of the year, basically. They're there.
So definitely, we will be able, in our partnership, of course, with organization also in your region, to build the service out and provide services. 24/7 is for a reason there. Cybersecurity can't sleep. The interesting question here is type of infrastructure. We supporting infrastructures in any kind of form, Linux, Windows, Mac OS as operating systems, AWS, Azure, private cloud providers that have their local clouds in nations. So we work very close with AT&T. We work with companies like T-Systems and also smaller local cloud providers in the different regions. So it is just really a question of giving us the information about your cloud, and we can be helping, or your infrastructure, we can help building out this security and identifying what would be the best approach. So the data is actually quite an interesting question for the managed SIN. As we build out our system in a way that we prefer to build it out in a way that the data stays with the customer, not even within country, but with the customers. So our data collection method is built in a way that the data stays within the country and the analyst is accessing the data in the country. And that helps us also with regulations. We have customers in Ireland, in Germany, and I'm German myself. We taking data security and privacy extremely serious, long time before many other European countries jumped onto this train. And we learned from this, and therefore the data resides in region, and if possible on the customer side.
Okay, so can you operate in a hybrid environment? Can both private government cloud and some on-premise? Also, can you elaborate on your penetration testing? So, and did you want to take the first one?
Yes. So hybrid cloud, again, I think we covered it already to some extent earlier in the last question. So as long we get the data, so with the private government cloud, of course it depends on which part of the government it is and how deep it goes in. And I know there is sometimes challenges with the government, but data can be tokenized. Therefore, the analyst could not even know which department they're in. And this data can then be analyzed actually. So we have no problem helping this and giving the monitoring capabilities to the government to identify that this data is really tokenized and is absolutely clean of anything that could indicate anything else than the threat information that needs to be analyzed. We can combine that with on-premise and cloud then together.
Okay, thank you. And I'll just elaborate a little bit more about our pen testing services. So with our penetration testing, we try to help our clients understand the actual gaps in their systems. So we provide a hybrid, let's say, service of both manual and automated penetration testing in a white box, gray box, or black box manner. So white box means that we get all of the information from the customer and we're able to go in and test for gaps. Gray box is we get limited information, and black box is we get no information. And this is one of the most popular features because we would take the position of an attacker. We would see what an attacker could see, and we try to get in and find out the gaps.
A question about Apple and Microsoft and big companies looking into data. If you work in a cloud environment like Microsoft, for example, there's different ways that Microsoft very first circumvents the need to report data back to, for example, the US government. In Germany, Microsoft, for example, has a Azure cloud that is based actually on the systems of T-Systems, so a local service provider. Therefore, the Patriot Act would not hold because everything is owned by T-Systems, not by Microsoft. Microsoft only provides the licensing in that case, and of course, makes a little bit money on top of it with the services and the knowledge. That is one way of looking at it. Another way is, of course, if you use Microsoft and Apple, what do you do in the cloud with Apple? Apple is, let's be very honest and straightforward, to a huge extent, a consumer product-based cloud when we're looking at iCloud and those functions. So I would in general stay away from them as good as I can. Yes, you can of course use your iPhone and your Mac and everything. You can encrypt the data, and the encryption on the hard drive for Apple is really good. And you've seen also in the past that Apple is a strong provider of encryption of the iPhone, and is not making it easy for any government to unlock even a phone. So there has to be a very strong case. On the Microsoft side, it's even easier because Microsoft is a business-based cloud. And even if you build something in the cloud of Microsoft, if you put your own encryption on it, Microsoft has no way of getting into it. It's a simple thing like this. It is really just the same like you build your own data center. Let's say you have an office, one in Saudi Arabia and one you have in another place like Iraq or what's mentioned there. You just need to separate this out a little bit. You need to make sure that you have the same security controls applied in the cloud than you would do in any other data center. Make sure that it's encrypted, make sure that you have multi-factor authentication, and then you're as safe as it gets at the end. We have to be very honest, we need to trust each other to some extent. Any operating system that you have not built yourself may have a backdoor in one way or the other due to vulnerability or anything else. So cybersecurity is a mixture between trust and a healthy paranoia. And you have to keep it this way. You have to question yourself. You have to question whatever something happens and say, like, is this still secure? And that's where we come in place and give advice and help our customers also, not only on the cybersecurity, but also on the architecture around how to build this out and review how is my infrastructure set up and interconnected.
Perfect. I will take the next question, which is, can you help apply GDPR compliance for entities in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia? And the answer is yes. We are working with a lot of companies around the world to help them apply GDPR wherever they are, as long as they operate in a country or they process personal data of EU citizens. They have to put in the measures for GDPR, and this is where we come in and we help regardless of industry or geography. And the next question is, will your company have dedicated security teams in Saudi? Yes, we already have dedicated teams in Saudi. We have invested in opening a security operations center in the kingdom, and we will have security teams there.
Yeah, and I'm absolutely looking forward that COVID at some stage hopefully allows us to travel again, because I would love to work with those people abroad and in your region and help sharing expertise and knowledge throughout our workforce. And any of you that may like to visit us when we open to travel again.
Andy, and Saudi Arabia, just enjoy the sun a little bit and take some of your knowledge and share this knowledge with our different customers in Saudi Arabia. And
I believe it would be an absolutely amazing journey for all of us. As long as you get me some of your beautiful dates, they're absolutely delicious. That would be an
absolutely, the next time I'll get you a whole box now, and we can share it, me, you, and Raluca now.
Yes, absolutely, we will.
We're looking forward to
you
that.
guys always welcome. So, is there any more questions?
Thank you
any
very
more
much.
thing? I can't see no more. Thank you for sharing this info. So yeah, I guess this is all the questions. If we will hang around for a few minutes. If you have any other questions, of course, you can ask us. Otherwise, we'll leave my email address here, and you can send whatever question you have, guys, and we will always be available. Thank you all.